Today was an interesting day in therapy. I think things went pretty well, especially because we needed to have sessions back to back after the new assistant manager came to my door, knocking on it with papers in her hands, and I didn't know who she was, and I freaked out, especially since then. And I've been having kind of strange nightmares again since then, but they'll subside. But we had a good therapy session, and my childhood came up a little bit because really what happened is I started talking because of the 34-page article on nihilism. I did decide to give that to my trauma therapist, and I thought that I really thought it was appropriate. That it helped because it was at first I was having a personal attachment to that 34 pages, and I realized that I felt I was cooking. So I realized that I felt like giving it away was kind of giving away a big part of me, because that 34 pages talks about his studying me as he was doing all the things on those 34 pages that he says we do. And it occurred to me that I'm not part of the we. I was one of the subjects. Now, I don't know how many subjects he has other than me, whose lives that he's totally destroyed. I know from the jerk blog that Schlicky put up, a lot of people were saying, terrible things that he had done to them, but they were all posting anonymously. I was not posting anonymously. And much to my sorrow, he had an attorney send a letter, kind of like a cease and desist letter. And in that letter, there was a CC. The attorney wrote CCs to like 5 or 6 people. So obviously he knew who those people, those anonymous posters were, by what they were saying that he had done to them, that he had done to them. So ironically, that jerk blog came up at the same point in time that the 4 years had expired for the statutes had expired for the type of rape that got performed on me by him. And I feel like it was put up on purpose. Nonetheless, people were reporting the things that he had done to them anonymously. Obviously, he knew who they were, because when the cease and desist letter came to me, the threat of a lawsuit came to me. It had a CC of all the names and addresses of other people who were on that jerk blog and talking about him. So I did not know who those people were. And here I see my name and my address and my phone number on this letter sent by an attorney representing somebody I consider to be a predator psychopath. And I don't know what kind of other people he hangs out with. He was into BDSM, and I just learned what the word catfishing means. So there's catfish, I guess, out there, and catfishing, and doing whatever deviated things. That's his kind of people. I'm not that kind of people. In fact, I told him, why didn't you stay with your kind of people? I think so. I feel like I became exposed to too many of his kind of people. And I didn't like that letter at all. If it would have just been sent to me and 5 letters or 6 letters, everybody else got their own individual. Anyway, I was like nuts. I went crazy. That attorney, I blew up his voice. I was like, you bring it on. Come on, come on, come on. So, yeah, so this 34 pages is really personal to me. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to take it and I'm going to give it to my therapist and I'm going to let him decide. I told him it's interesting. It's very interesting. Just know that when I read it, I'm going to read it differently than a lot of other people are going to read it. So there, when the comment about we, when he's referring to we as society, no, really, when he refers to we, he's like a narcissist. We means him, all right, and the woman who is his girlfriend or partner or whatever she is to him. So it came up. It came up that he mentioned one time being my therapist being in a city council meeting, and he really noticed that the council people were referring to those people in certain sections of the city. And he said he really thought, wow, these council people are kind of putting these people down, like lumping them all together and putting them down. And I had told him a story, about what caused my best friend to stop being my best friend. And I told him a story about a woman who I knew taking advantage of the welfare system, back in San Jose where I lived. And I told him, I could easily be saying, oh, if, like if that wasn't a white person, oh, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't offend me. But that's not true. And if I say that was a Mexican person, when I say it, I'm not saying all Mexican people do that. I'm not saying that. No, I'm saying that person. So I'm never gonna. I'm really not into generalizing. I like to consider people as the individuals they are, and so kind of his perspective was a little bit like he was one of them and he was noticing how they were referring to these other groups of people. He didn't say their ethnicity or anything. So, he just noticed that they seemed to be kind of having a derogatory undertone about it. And he was observing that. He was catching that. And so, for him, I'm sure he's very introspective, and it probably made a difference in his life. A lot of people don't see that. They don't see that in themselves. Well, I told him this story, and this is a true story. And it, the whole thing about I, me, this is all caused by my childhood. That's the whole undercurrent with medical doctors. It's all in our head, or it's all because of our childhood, not their childhood. Because they're special people. They're the special people that is written about in the 34 pages, right? I mean, that is a we as a I don't want to say bourgeoisie. I would say more in the hierarchical structure. They're they are privileged. It's how the privileged see people like me. Well, he didn't know when he first met me that he was not dealing with somebody I don't think he realized I was not in his social economical bracket, if you will. I'm thinking that most people in that social economical bracket are deviated. I'm just thinking that just from more and more that I learn, they put up with and they allow a lot of deviates in there among them. So anyway, I told him the story about my childhood, and I'm going to tell you why I told this story. Okay, I grew up in a high minority neighborhood. So, like when the so and so raped me, I said, you know what? You're not messing, you're messing with a white Mexican, okay? I grew up with Mexicans. My dad worked with almost all Mexicans. So I'm not going to be somebody's version of a Karen. I look at Karens and I feel sorry for them because they don't really have life experience and they believe the bullshit that they're being fed. I don't go with that victim stuff, that poor minority victim stuff, because I lived in a neighborhood where they were not victims. They were not victims. And in fact, many of them, a number of them, were predators too, were working the system, were working the system. And my family was not a family that worked the system. But anyway, I was being bussed across town. Not good. I'm with George Wallace on that. Busing was not a good thing. Okay. Kids are always political pawns, though. It started, we weren't that way. We weren't that way in California. I think California is really quite a unique state. To grow up in California when I did was very unique. So I grew up in Silicon Valley before the Silicon Valley creeps moved in. It was all orchards and agriculture. It was a beautiful place. I mean, interstate or Highway 101 going north and south through California, it had signals. It wasn't this big artery, this huge, billion lane infrastructure of highway. It was signals. We lived with a signal down there and a signal down there on Highway 101. It was two lanes going south. It was a big, wide median, median of dirt median, and two lanes going north and signals. So, yeah. So it was an entirely different environment, and there was a lot of Mexican people in the area, and for some reason, so they started busing us. They were busing my little neighborhood because it was high minority. Anybody, they were busing anybody from our neighborhood into this white neighborhood where there was drugs. Oh my God, what was going on? And this was in the 60s, right? Oh my God, talk about a turbulent time, like this that we're going through now. Well, this is pretty bad. Never mind. But it was pretty bad then. But we were being used as political pawns. So there was no auditing. Were the kids being bused really minorities? No. Were they being checked for that? No. They weren't. They just shove the money in the direction and they don't check anything out. So it just so happened that there was, and this disappointed me. Two of the girls were girls that I had gone to elementary school with, and they were starting into a girl gang kind of thing. And they were on the bus. They would be in the back of the bus deciding which white chick they were going to beat up. Okay, so they would get off of the bus at the stop of the girl that they were going to beat up, and they would get off and they would beat her up. I would imagine that the two would hold on hold her while the girl got beaten up. So disappointing, because I knew them from my early childhood. So anyway, when it became my turn, I didn't know that one of my neighbors, she was kind of a friend, but one of my neighbors, I think she became a cop too, but one of my neighbors, I think cops become cops because they got bullied or beaten up. But anyway, it became my turn and I didn't know, but the day before, she had been beaten up by them. And she heard them on the bus saying that I was next. So as it went, when everybody got off the bus, she ran ahead around the corner, jumped the fences and everything, and got to my house to tell my mom, those girls are going to beat Judy up. Well, thank God for her, because my mom jumped in that car, and those girls had already circled me. All right, they had caught up with me and they had circled me. My mom's Oldsmobile came around. She had an Oldsmobile Starfire, just top of the line. It was so cool. Anyway, it came around the corner. She pulled up and she jumped out of the car and she walked right into the middle of this, and and she said, "What do you think you're doing here?" You know, like that. That was my mom. My mom, I'm proud. I don't care about what my sisters think about my mom. I am proud of my mom. So anyway, I miss her so much. But anyway, so the big one, there was one, her name was Rachel, and she was pretty big. She was probably a head and a half taller than I am. So she was big, and like big. I'm fat. She was like built big, like a brick. Anyway, she said, my mom's like, "You're not going to beat her up," and she was like, "You can't stop me. If you hit me," she goes, "I'm 17, I'm a minor. If you hit me, you'll go to jail." My mom was so badass. My mom like put her chest right up to that chick and she goes, "Not if you hit me first." That was my mom. I was like, "Oh man, mom, yay." That she didn't know what to say. That Rachel girl backed down. I think she stopped going to school because her whole point was to get to beat us up. So, and I never saw her again. I never, thank God. But my mom was like, "Come on, hit me, please, hit me." So that she would have been sorry. So anyway, that's how my mom was. The reason I tell that story is because when when I started sharing what was going on, and what was going on was triangulation. All right, this medical group was talking to me through people. They already had two infiltrators in my life after the Ambien, right after the Ambien. So they had two infiltrators in my life, and they were talking to me through them. Now, I took down a video I posted yesterday because I am getting concerned about how brave I'm getting, that I'm getting my confidence back and I'm getting brave. And I'm afraid that with all of the things that the courts have allowed these people to do and say, and the things that police have done and said, it's like I'm going to be the loser if any of them decide that, one, I'm talking to them because they're privileged and I'm not allowed to talk with them. They made that clear. Their security made that clear way back when my attorney told me to go to the parking lot to talk to that doctor, so to let him know that we need him to discuss how badly injured that I was from the car wreck. To be honest, the guy was such a fucking moron. I don't think he knew how bad. I literally, my eyes would cross. My neck was so messed up. I'd be like, honestly, even still, it's not right. It's not good. But he did not know. He did not care. He did not care. He did not take pride in his work. He did not take pride in what he was doing. So he didn't have to. He didn't have to. And that's how it is when you don't have to face responsibility and possibly liability. You don't have to have pride in what you do. You know, that's why so many doctors who have pride in what they do leave. They leave because their conscience is real. So when I couldn't understand how they could be talking them, why would they get a restraining order against me, then talk to me through other people, and yet I could never say anything to them? I was restricted from that. No, the court said in these depositions, you're still trying to talk to them. That you can't do that. You're violating the restraining order. That's what they were saying. They were saying in, I think in 2018, when they were trying to extradite me to put me into an insane asylum. This is true. This is true. The judge was saying, you're trying to talk to them in your blog. I'm like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. So, but that's going to be their spin because they're arrogant and they're egotistical and they everything is about them. Everything is about them. And I told my trauma therapist, I said it's right there in his 34 pages. They don't see us as people. They don't see us as people. They don't see us as being any different from them. They project their horrible way of thinking onto us. And so I felt like that video was getting a little bit too close for comfort. And because I will tend to like lash out, I will lash out and I'll say, like, it'll sound, I'll say it like I'm talking to them. And that comes from the triangulation. Why do they get to use other people to talk to me? And they're not going to let me say back to them what I know is true. Nobody knows me better than I do. So, okay, back when it first started, my mom, kept saying the same thing everybody else does. It's coming up. Why do family members, and friends abandon us and everything? Well, I can say for myself that, okay, I was telling mom, my mom was probably my closest confidant. So, I would say, Mom, man, they're like blah, 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 and she'd say, just like what everybody does, just ignore them. Just ignore them. Just ignore them. But they made it impossible for me to ignore them. And then my mom was paying attention, and my mom always was our protectors. And my dad too, but my mom got him, got down and into the dirt, right? So she knew all of the ins and outs of it. So she was a chick. So she started seeing it, and she's the one who started giving me affirmations, and she was like, those two right there, that one right there. My neighbor who was all way into it and she was really trying hard to make me jealous because she was never married. And she told me herself that she hated me for the 15 years that I lived there married. She hated me because I was married. And a lot of women are that way. A lot of women hate men, particularly because they've never been married, and they'll hate women who are married and the whole concept of marriage. And I guess there's men that way too. Men don't like to share their money anyway, so they have big hang-ups about that. So I guess they're more transactional. um, so anyway, my mom started realizing it, and then she started realizing there was no way she was going to be able to stop them from destroying me. So at a certain point, I wasn't telling everybody. I wasn't telling everybody. So the people who I was telling was very limited. That I wasn't talking about it in my professional life, and in most of my social life, I was not talking about it. So, but I found out that that doctor was talking about it to people in my social life. So they were the ones who were making things into gossip. And one of those things, I've already mentioned it, was when I was hoping that my ex and I would be getting back together. He had a really cheap wedding ring, and I thought, oh, it'll be nice to get him a nice wedding ring. So I was looking at wedding rings, and the guy who owned the jewelry shop happened to be a Rotarian. And that doctor really did use the Rotarians against me. But they're all so egotistical, and men thrive on gossip. Men like them. My dad was never. Blue collar men don't usually thrive on gossip. They're too busy working and taking care of their families if they have. They're just not like that. And I grew up with blue collar men. I didn't realize how catty men were until I went to work in this credit union, and I spent about 8 years there, and I got to see men in an office and what pansy asses most of them are. It's like, man, you guys aren't men. And certainly I never liked doctors, because everybody I knew had been messed up by doctors, including myself and my son and my friends and everybody. So even my friends who said, "Oh no, my doctor's a good doctor." Okay, yeah, you just okay. I believe it when somebody says their doctor's good. I say, "You bet, you bet." I'm sure that you've got a good doctor. I'm sure. And then they come and go, "Oh man, my doctor." Whoa, whoa, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what can I say? Yeah, that's too bad. I don't think any of them are any good. Okay, so. Which puts me kind of in a very vulnerable place. I do think the one who gave me the gallbladder surgery, I was lucky. The nurse told me I was lucky to have her, because the rest of the surgeons didn't care and usually botched them all up, and she'd have a mess post surgery. She'd have a mess to clean up. She was doing cartwheels over who I got as my surgeon, because she said, I know this is going to be a clean operation. And it was a tough one too, for a number of reasons. It was tough. The surgeon was really nervous. She took pride in her work. There's not many who do. They don't care. They don't care. So anyway, my mom always defended us, and with garbage, and that she couldn't stop them broke her. But I was thinking back on this, and I know I did not tell my mom I was raped. I didn't tell anybody I was raped. I only tried to tell the police, and they didn't care. The police did not care. They did not care that my home was illegally entered. They did not care that I was being dragged in and out. The King County Crisis and Commitment Services didn't care. The Tiffin Victims Assistance people did not care. The judges did not care. The only judge who actually cared was the first judge in the Multicare versus Judy, and she was pissed off about what they were doing. She was trying to hide it because she didn't want to look like she was favoring me, but she was pissed off about it way back in 2005. And then the judge who heard the criminal case against me with the 4 counts of violating a temporary restraining order, he was retiring the following week, and he said he couldn't leave the bench with me on his conscience. And so he altered what he could in the case against me, and he said, "I'm going to do my best to set you up for success." But I had already been targeted, and he even said, "I see what they're trying to do to you." And what they were doing is to get to the point of this 34-page nihilism report. What they were doing back then was they were not going to let me succeed. They were not, and they were in cahoots with everybody who was already harassing me, going all the way back, because that criminal case, I think, came down in 2012. So they had already been riding my back since 2004. And I think it did start with Well, it didn't help when Teresa told me the Chase money launderers were going to kill me, and that was no joke. I just assumed that she got it taken care of. I trusted what she said, that she was going to try to make them understand that they were going to try to kill somebody who didn't deserve it. And what else could I do? But when I told my brother-in-law, and he got mad at me. He's in this kitchen. He got mad. We were he was such a cool brother-in-law to have too. And I always had a good time with him, and it was very disappointing when he I can't say he got mad at me. He was upset, and he said, "Oh, great. So you've got the mafia after you, and what are we supposed to do about that?" Well, and that brings me to this long story, brings me to what I'm talking about. People don't know what to do. My mom didn't know what to do. My mom, at first, when the Ambien stuff went down, my mom told the doctor, "I feel like I need to call the police on you because what you're giving my daughter is going to kill her." That's where he got the ding, ding, ding idea, I think, of suicidal and homicidal. But that wasn't what my mom was saying. My mom saw my condition. I was near catatonic. And I was I thought I was going to drive from Washington to Ohio so my son could see my condition and my son would know what to do. But in fact, my son, when I did get here in 2015, and then the police chief told him what was going on with those people and me, my son didn't know what to do. Families don't know what to do, just like my brother-in-law didn't know what to do. They've got their lives. They're busy. They're working. They've got bills. They've got those things on their mind. What do we do? What do we do? And the police, oh my, Renton police. I mean, they were. I can post pictures of the gaslighting that they were doing to me in Renton. I went to the Renton police. Renton was a big deal. It was like the hub. It was First American. That was a hub. It was a hub with that doctor. It was a hub. And I was working there every day, going there when I was able to get back to work. So I'm just going to say, families don't know what to do. And honest to God, the police don't know what to do. Honest to God, it didn't seem like the FBI even cared. I said to my therapist today, thank God, when they were trying to have me arrested, they were trying to have me, the man who raped me and destroyed my life, tried to have me institutionalized, first of all, and then he turned around and he tried to get the FBI and the county prosecutor to arrest me for stalking and bullshit. I'm clear across the country from him, but the doctor and his family, they moved here. And they were saying I was stalking them too, and yet they moved here. Anyway, thank God, the county prosecutor, he wrote a letter and he said, no, clearly from what she's writing on her blog, that man has done something horrible to her, and she's ranting. She's trying to get over it. She's trying to get it out. He's like, I don't know what he did. And I don't know. I don't know on my blog that I was saying he raped me. I really don't know. I can't remember. By that point, I was hysterical. I was like, I mean, they were hacking my computer big time. I had evidence. I had a witness, a woman I didn't even know, ready to witness to it. Had documentation to prove it. And they had a guy who friended me on Facebook, and he gave me a picture of his 4-year-old daughter in the front of a laptop on the floor, and he said, my granddaughter I've taught to be better on the computer than even I've been. And then he sent a huge virus and melted down my computer, which scared everybody. I had over 33,000 views and comment. I had tons of comments on my on my WordPress blog because people were saying, yeah, my insurance company did this to me, or, blah, blah, and a lot of people with medical doctors, a lot of people. There used to be a lot, well, there probably still is. There used to be a lot of people who were butchered by doctors, and they were on Facebook crying out the same way I was crying out. I had to step away from it because it's like, I, I, I had my own situation, with these people stalking me, and they didn't give up, and so they don't. They think it's cute. Dr. Grande just did the video on the catfishing. I didn't know what that even meant. And that William Fulton and those E1, 4-year E1 veterans, it's like if you're still an E1 after 4 years in the military, you're a pretty sad sack. And I'm sure that's, well, but they're all veterans. Oh yeah, oh, good for you. Bunch of slobs. I said it. They're a bunch of circle jerking. I never knew. They said that I was there catfishing or being catfished or something. I didn't even know what they meant. I don't know that dirty talk. I really don't. I don't. So, and I'm not ashamed of. They wanted me to be ashamed because I'm immature. That's the way that the BDSM 34-page nihilistic writer thinks. I mean, the things he came up with to put me down. It's like, oh, I'm not into, sex games and BDSM and blowjobs and things like that. So, I'm not at your level of sexual maturity. I don't care. I don't want to be. No, thank you. And if that's what turns you and medical doctors on, and you professors and, politicians and everybody, Hollywood, more power to you. More power to you. Well, Harvey Weinstein's in jail. Ha ha. But yeah, families don't know what to do. Families don't know what to do. Police, it's not their jurisdiction. FBI, it's not their jurisdiction. At least the county prosecutor didn't say this isn't my jurisdiction. At least he didn't say that. He was like, no. Thank God. He did better than those stupid bitches over at the Victims Assistance Program who didn't even show up. They were supposed to go with me to my hearing. And instead, they were just madly in love with the 34-page nihilism guy. Whatever. And the magistrate, too. She wanted me during the hearing when I was trying to get protection from him. She wanted me to call him doctor. Asked him, how would you like to be called, Mr. And she said, refer to him as doctor to me. I'm like, fuck you. I walked out of there. I said, you know what? Fuck you people. You can have your rapist. You can have your rapist. Go ahead. Give him what he wants. Go to your little masquerade parties, and be all of that. Whatever. So I really felt like today a lot got covered, and I had to take down that blog, that video from yesterday, because I just felt really uncomfortable about how they could spin it to like I'm trying to talk to them, so I'm violating that order. I need to be arrested. And that's really, that's a fear that they get off on having instilled in me, is a fear that they can come after me based on those orders. I don't think the courts will vacate them because it will show what derelicts the courts were to begin with, giving them the order. I know Laura Jean Middow, that judge, did not like what Multicare started with me. And I know I don't even have his name, and I wish I did. Maybe I could find it in my papers somewhere. I don't know. But whoever that judge was who was retiring there in 2012, who changed things for me, bless his heart. He was the only two judges, even after that case was dismissed. This guy and this chick brought me back to court again. They had a 1-year restraining order against me. They had, I mean, it was like back to back to back that they were dragging me into court, constantly knocks at my doors. with delivery of court summons for more accusation, and I could not get rid of them. I could, and as people who were so insignificant in my life literally destroyed it. And and have, now there's a 34-page article. What I said, I don't even know what to call this. I don't even know. Is it a thesis? Is it an expose? You know, is it part of a book, a compilation? I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's what they it's what they do to people who they don't think anything of. And so, yeah. So, oh, I was saying that after the criminal matter was settled, um, that judge, he said, well, they have a year restraining order against you, so I'm not even going to issue, in this case, a restraining order against you. We're just going to dismiss this and figure that year restraining order, and once that year's up, it's over, right? So, yay, okay, again, I leave the courthouse. Yay, it's over, it's over. I can focus on something, I don't know what, but they destroyed my career, right? They'd already destroyed my career. And probably it was 2013 by the time that that went around too. So I was probably in benzo withdrawals. I think I was. Yeah, because I had tried to kill myself before that hearing. I remember. Yeah. Um, so I was, woo, anyway, um, anyway, so okay, that was done. Now I could try to focus on, I was trying to get my broker's license to open my own business, and I kept trying to find ways to save my house of 25 years, and my finances. And I'd probably been, it was probably within a month to two, I'm going to cry. It was probably about a month to 2 months after that got settled on my door again. And they're fucking summoning me back to court because the nihilist wanted to get a lifetime restraining order against me. He didn't think a 1 year restraining order was going to be enough to keep me away from him because I wanted him so badly. I needed his penis so badly. That's why, yeah. I mean, that's how it all, that's just the thread that ran through it. And back to court I went. I don't even know why I showed up, really. In hindsight, I mean, I didn't know, I don't think I knew why I was being summoned to court again. So I guess it would be natural that I would show up. And in the courtroom, he was asking for a lifetime restraining order. And the judge was an evil. I mean, the judge was like, I, he was like, what was his name? Finkel? Mike Finkel, I think his name was. He was like there in his robe and everything, um, and he was like enamored with this guy. Like because this guy swings all ways. I was just reading a book and it reminded me this Typewriter Beach about how it used to be called ambidextrous, and that's him. I mean, that is him. His goal, according to one of the women who came to me trying to help me, his goal was to have a threesome, and so far as she knew, he hadn't yet succeeded, but maybe by now he has. I don't know. He's fucked up. He's really fucked up. He doesn't see the person. He reminds me of the video that Dr. Grande just put together about this surgeon and how all of his relationships are transactional. So so anyway, that judge was like lusting at this couple because he still had that woman who was his partner in crime. And the judge said to me, and he like leaned forward. He like leaned in to look at me down there. And he said, I just think a lifetime order it's just too long. It's too long of an order. That it's just not right. And like he was really saying this, so I'm just looking at him because he's already shown me his colors with the way he was slobbering over the bench at these two pigs, sitting over there. So, falsely accusing me anyway. And he goes, let me look at my calendar to see what I think would be a reasonable amount of time for this restraining order to be on you. And he said something like December 31st, 2099. 2099. When was that? So it was 2012. It was 2012, so I'm being goofy. 2099. I'm writing this down. Yeah, 2099. I'm not doing the math very well, but it was something like that, or maybe even, 9,099. I don't know. But it was just like this. And he goes, that's less than a lifetime, right? Well, I don't know. After the Ambien, who knows? Who knows? I was really happy today when I could add $3.50 and $6.99. That made me in my head, blew my mind. Wow, I've given my brains back, but barely. But anyway, man, the family doesn't know what to do. The courts are corrupt as can be. The courts are so corrupt. The entire system. What a blessing, that county prosecutor. I mean, he could have said, "Yeah, let's go after," like those stupid asses in Seattle did over the violating a temporary restraining order. I did not. I followed the instructions on page 2. They had buried, after all the horrible accusations they were making of me that were totally lies, they had buried, like in the last page in tiny print, do not send to the address on the front, which was their address. Page 2 said to send copies of any of my pleadings to that address in big types. And on the last page in teensy weensy types, after I'm reading all these pages where I'm like, oh my God. Today was a good day in therapy. Man. So I gave the 34 pages to him. I said, I just think it's something that you and your peers would be interested in because, he and we already know what's been done to me. So, I said, we don't even, you may not even want to bring that up, and why would he? Because it's supposed to be confidential. I trust it is confidential with him. It's not multi-care. But anyway, so I said, but I do think that in your field, you're going to be running into people who have been exposed to that kind of an attack. And this is what I've been telling them from the beginning. And I was trying not to scare them. But I found that in therapy they're very reluctant. They're very much systems people. And so they're very reluctant, even though they'll say, you know, they'll get it. A lot of them, most of them still don't get it because they have way tons of trust in the honesty and integrity of the system that simply is not there when it's put to the test. So, but I think he will find it interesting. I found it interesting as one of the subjects. I found it interesting and insulting and very personal, you know. But I think from his point of view, in a therapy situation, it would be something for him to share with his peers to say, "Look at how we are," because I really had the impression, I don't know, I really had the impression that even at Valley Cities, which Valley Cities treated people a lot better, but even at Valley Cities, there was still the idea that we had problems, that childhood in our heads, you know. And it's you know, this I'll call it expose that he's created, these 34 pages. It exposes that it's not, it was never in my head, it was what they were doing to me. And I just had to tell the story about my mom, because my mom, she wasn't perfect, and you could say I was trauma bonded to her. You know what I mean? I listen to all the YouTubes and everything on all of these DSM things, and they're always expanding. They're coming up with more things and more things and more things and more things, you know, that everybody has. And um, my mom, I loved my mom, and it broke her. It absolutely broke her that she could not stop them from doing what they were doing to me. And I wasn't even fully telling them all that was being done to me. And sometimes I want to come here and tell in personal details just exactly what physically they have done to me. And it's just so degrading. I know I've said it before. It's just so degrading that I cannot say it the way that they would want me to say it, because they made an example out of me. They do that too. You know, I lived, so, you know, others have died. Rick and Misty are dead. You know, what's her face? Virginia Giuffre is dead. Most people end up dead. And if you live, then you're an example to go out there and tell people what they do to people who live, and they destroy us. So, and there's a lot of people who play it too. They'll play it. Oh yeah, they're destroying me. You know, it's like, so there's so many fakers. So that cause that, just like women who cry rape when they weren't raped, and then it gets out, oh, they didn't. I think it's, well, I won't go into the politics of it, but so once they find out, every man who's a rapist is off the hook. It's like, see, they lie about it. You know, he said, she said. That's what he said after he raped me. It's going to be he said, she said. You know, I wasn't beaten and bruised, right? I wasn't beaten and bruised. And he played it like a BDSM game. That's why he started posting all that BDSM stuff. Like I was into some kind of BDSM stuff with him. I didn't even know what catfishing meant. So, anyway, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for now. This one I won't be afraid to post, but it's awfully long. It was a good therapy today, and I feel like I'm really coming a long way. And I do worry, and I have good reason to worry because every time I thought that I was rid of them, they were back on my doorstep with more bullshit. So I'll probably end up with that sort of kind of anxiety and fear. It went on so long, 22 years, so I would imagine I'm going to end up with these worries. I'm not constantly in worry, but it's legitimate to be. What did Mike used to call it? Mike used to ask me if I felt like the other shoe was going to drop at any minute. This was when all of a sudden, um, all of the fraud in real estate lending was coming out. And he asked me if I live every day thinking the shoe's going to drop. And he said that he did. He said he's lived like that for a long time. And I said, no, even then I did not feel that way. But and this was with multicare, and the money launderers, you know, um, out to get me. But I never felt like that in all of my life. So the beat down I've taken, I get it. He actually, Mike, felt that way because he had done something wrong when it came time for us to get our license. We had to be licensed in California to originate loans anyway. I had my full California license in California. So and in Washington we didn't have to be. So, but they were making us national. It was national that you had to be licensed, and unless you work for certain banks and things like that, because they don't want to license all of the rich people's kids who work at the bank. They don't have to be licensed. They go to some junior college class and get hired. Some finance course or something. Get their bachelor's or whatever. Bachelors. They're big on bachelors in this area, and but when it came time for us to get licensed, he he did not want it because we had to have a pretty thorough background check too, and he didn't want to go through with it. And even the owners of the company said, "Come on, Mike, do it. We'll whatever the problem comes up, we'll vouch for your work and how you've been with us and blah blah." And he was like, "Mm-mm." So I don't know what he had gotten into, but and I didn't know it at that time when he asked me if I felt like the shoe's going to drop any moment. I didn't know at the time that he had some type of criminal background. So and it must have been a felony at some point because I think that was the only thing that would prevent somebody from getting their license. But I didn't feel when he said that, I just thought figuratively speaking about life. I said no, not at all. But by the time these people started beating me down and I was going through the benzodiazepine withdrawals. The benzodiazepine withdrawals were rough, especially because these people were totally attacking me at the same time. There was no reprieve for me at all. And then I go across the country and it picks up right here, same shit, different state. So can't get away from it, but families don't know what to do. It was a good day in therapy, and I just thought I'd share this with you. And thank you again to whoever helped my numbers get current, because sitting at those numbers for a couple of days was really bumming me out. So have a good one.